So with all these A grades that the Patriots are getting all across the board for this 2025 draft class, I wanted to see who the steal was. It's great that you hit on the positions that you need to hit on, right? That's perfect. But who were the guys that's giving me hope for this front office for the future? Who are the guys that I'm like, you know what? They had some conviction. They made a dynamite pick here. They're outsmarting everyone else. I think Trayvon Henderson in the second round sort of fits in that category. I think Jared Wilson from Georgia fits into that category. I think Kyle Williams, the receiver from Washington State, fits into that category, and Braden Swinson from LSU also fits into it. But who is the steal? Because right away, I thought the day of the draft, day 3, when they were rounding out their draft, Kyle Williams was the guy. That was the steal. I look at Kyle Williams, man, and I love everything about it. I love that they didn't go first round on a wide receiver or second round because they suck in those rounds picking wide receivers. And I am happy with the direction they went with the kind of receiver. I'm sick of the not very fast, tall guys who go up for contested balls, right? N'Keal Harry was that. Jalen Polk, to some extent, was that. And in this draft, Tet McMillan, the first wide receiver in the draft, who a lot of mocks had the Patriots taking for a lot of this process, was definitely that. And we have seen that does not work with this organization. It's not what this team needed right now. You need a productive wide receiver, basically with any mold, but preferably one who's a little bit fast and can get yards after the catch. The Patriots were awful among many things last year. Yards after catch, playmakers at the wide receiver position, just begging to get anything you could out of Pop Douglas and hoping that he could be your yak guy, your playmaking guy. And Pop can do that to some extent. Kyle Williams can really do that. And again, he was not a guy who was really highly touted because he played in the Pac-2, what's left of the Pac-12. He was playing, a Mountain West schedule at 10 p.m. Eastern time on the CW, right? So we didn't see a lot of him, but he was one of the most productive receivers in all of college football last year. Well over 1,000 yards, over 14 yards a catch, absolute burner, 4.4 40. So, even for a smaller guy at 5'10", a 4.4 guy, I'll take speed over the height pretty much any day of the week. Speed really helps you get open, as we've seen with N'Keal Harry, and I think we will see with Tet McMillan. The height and the muscle doesn't necessarily make sure you're an open receiver. Okay, and plus you already have a tall guy. Mac Hollins, great. He's not your number one receiver, but he's tall. You don't need to chase that in the draft like you've done so many years before. And I love this tape of Kyle Williams. I'm going to show you 3 plays on here, but the first one, when he's matched up with Travis Hunter of Colorado, it's in 2023, so not this past year, but both veteran players at that point. Travis Hunter, apparently the number 1 corner in the draft. Kyle Williams absolutely burns him. Look at this. And then you see the yak there in the Holiday Bowl as well. A Holiday Bowl that he shouldn't have been playing in. Everyone else would have opted out of that. And he did not. He actually got hurt in that game and decided to keep playing. According to the big board, this is from Phil Perry, the consensus big board rankings, the Patriots actually reached on Kyle Williams. He was slotted at 74. They picked him at 69. Very nice. But what I see with that in this wide receiver draft in general is there was not a big gap between Tet McMillan at number 1 and whomever your 7th or 8th wide receiver was, right? And there was rumblings leading up to the draft that Matthew Golden would actually be the first wide receiver taken in the draft. And it ends up being McMillan. He's picked in the top 10, but there's just not a huge difference between 1 and 6 or 7 or 8. as in years past. Last year, Marvin Harrison, there was a huge gap between number 1 and number 2 at wide receiver. And so I think the Patriots get great value from Kyle Williams. I think he's a guy that slots in right away. Little bit of a drop issue at Washington State, which, look, let's not blow past that. That's not something I love. But for a guy who gets as open as much as he does, I think that is a boost to this team. I think there's a little bit of the play style of Stephon Diggs. I'm not saying he's going to be Stephon Diggs, but he's got a little bit of that height and play style, and you're playing with Stephon Diggs, which I think is nice. But the comp that I loved over the weekend from NFL Network, Steve Smith of the Carolina Panthers, a guy who I think should be in the Hall of Fame here pretty soon, all-pro receiver, absolute dude for a long time in this league. He said, you know who Kyle Williams reminds me of? Me. Reminds me of a young Steve Smith. I love that. And there is a lot there. I mean, Steve Smith, I don't think was quite as fast, but was short, overlooked, quick as all get out, and could get open and was a big yak guy. Kyle Williams is definitely, he fits all of those criteria. So that was my initial thought. Kyle Williams got to be the steal of the draft, right? Jared Wilson picked 15 spots behind the big board projection and is going to go in as a starter on the offensive line, which obviously needs a ton of help. Center position needs a ton of help. That might be your steal. I'm not going to sit here and break down tape of Jared Wilson necessarily, but it's a guy who I think teams were apprehensive about because he only started 1 year at Georgia, but is a super athletic guy who fits a major need position for you right away. Maybe that's your steal. Or maybe it's Braden Swinson. Kyle Williams was my first pick of that's your steal of the draft because I think fans are going to love him. But if we're talking pure steal, overlooked guys with plenty of upside and with a bonus being at a position that the Patriots need a lot of help at, which is most of them, right? Braden Swinson from LSU, I think, is your steal of the draft. If this kid sees the field this year and works on his maturity issues, then he probably is your steal of the draft. Defensive end, LSU, second team All-SEC. The big board had him at number 71. The Patriots picked him 75 picks later at 146. So we talk about how big a slip in the draft Shedeur Sanders had. He goes down to 144. Meanwhile, the guy 2 picks behind him was probably a more surprising slide for NFL scouts. Because Shedeur Sanders was not top 5 on the big board. He was top 5 on Deion's big board, not everyone else's. Braden Swinson was seen as a third-round pick who slips all the way into the 5th round at number 146. Again, there are some character concerns there, like there was with Shedeur. There's some character concerns. That's why he falls to 146. But this is where the Patriots and their front office really backed up saying, we're going to get the best player available. The 5th or 6th round, at that point, you're taking flyers, right? You picked Joe Milton in the 6th round last year. There was a fucking basketball player in Caleb Lohner who was taken in the 6th round, who played 1 year of tight end at Utah. Rico Gathers, another basketball player, was picked by the Cowboys in the 6th round back in the day. That's where you take flyers. Once in forever, you get a Tom Brady in the 6th round. The rest of them, you're taking a chance on guys. And at that point, you're like, you know what? He's probably got some character issues here. We've got another one of his teammates here in Will Campbell. I'm going to be really hard on him. Mike Vrabel's probably thinking. And we really need a pass rush, man. There was one game the Patriots had any semblance of an NFL pass rush last year, and it was against one of the worst offensive lines in the league, the Chicago Bears. They had 8 or 9 sacks in that game. They were bottom 5 in the league in sacks, and if you take out that game, they would have been the worst. And here you bring in a guy, again, all-SEC player, 13 TFLs, 8.5 sacks in the highest level of college football competition you can have. That's a steal. And this was a guy who was getting some people had him as first-round grade going into the 2024 season. a first-round grade. And you see that I just read off the stats here. He still had a productive season. But a first or second round grade dropping to the 5th round at 146, if that's not your steal of the draft, I don't know what is. You got to get his head on straight. And he's the only guy, I think, from what I've read on this draft class, he's the only guy the Patriots picked that has that kind of character concern. Obviously, Mike Vrabel and Elliott Wolf and Ryan Cowden, I'm sure, have talked a lot about the culture of this team and fixing the culture, taking out the entitlement, taking out the bad apples. Of course, they go along with that by forcing David Andrews basically into retirement, which I found odd. But the other guys they picked were character guys. Will Campbell, absolutely zenith of a character guy. Braden Swinson, not exactly that, but I think they think they can work with him. And Braden Swinson is pretty high on himself. He said he cried real tears. Worked hard for everything he got in his life. Don't care what the pick is. I got picked. I'm excited to get here and work. New England, you're getting a dog. That's what he said. You are getting a dog. The other teams are not believing in him. He said, you got to steal. A player that's going to do his 111th. Player that's going to do whatever the team needs. Looking to change the culture here, hopefully in a good way, and add to the winning that's going on. Don't know what Patriots he's been watching the last few years. You're getting a dog for sure. I love the Kyle Williams pick. I love being able to get a plug-and-play starter on the offensive line in the 4th round in Jared Wilson. And I really like getting a guy who was getting a first or second round grade at the beginning of this year in the 5th round. I think that's big time for the Patriots. Some people like Craig Woodson, too, the Cal safety. Doesn't do a lot for me, but you need some help at that position, obviously. But for so many years, this is where I want to kind of make the point. For so many years under the Belichick regime, it felt like it was about outsmarting other teams and reaching like hell. Like there was no press conference during the draft this year or live stream during the draft this year where Sean McVay is laughing at the Patriots' first-round pick because he thought they were going to get him at 105. Like, there was none of that this year. That was the Belichick, and it got so old at the end. It's one of the only criticisms I ever have of Belichick is that you just thought he was trying to outsmart everybody else by taking a Cole Strange in the first round, or not drafting Lamar Jackson, which he said was a huge regret of his, even though he knew he was moving off a quarterback pretty soon. So to see a team not overthink it too much and actually get a real steal later on in the draft rather than reaching at someone in the first round and hoping that might become a steal, I just love that mentality. And we'll see how this works out. I was not high on the Trayvon Henderson pick at first, but the more I read about him, the more I am in. Okay, again, it's the optics of a running back in the 2nd round for a team that's won 8 games in the last 2 years. But according to all the people scouting him, he's really advanced in pass protection, can step in and do that right away. That's a huge need for Drake May and to obviously have a weapon as a 3rd down back that's been so successful in the Josh McDaniels offense. Every time the Josh McDaniels offense has been successful, that's humongous. And again, we compared him yesterday to Shane Vereen, compared him to James White. Those guys each needed to redshirt in the NFL to learn the playbook, pick up the blitz protections, and be a guy that they were confident to block for Tom Brady on 3rd down and go out for a catch on a crucial down. Trayvon Henderson, pretty advanced in that. Big-time playmaker in college as well. Not exactly a steal in that the big board had him at 37. The Patriots picked him at 38, but could be a much bigger pick than I originally thought in terms of helping out Drake May. You needed to protect Drake May. You needed to help him. And I think the first 4 rounds of this draft, you did both. You got Treveyon Henderson and Kyle Williams to help him. You got Jared Wilson and, of course, Will Campbell to protect him. And Treveyon hopefully will do a little bit of both. So I'm not blowing smoke, man. I think they're getting it right. I think this was a really good draft by the Patriots. Obviously, we'll need to see in October how many of these guys are out there starting. a good deal into the season. But they got some steals here. Kyle Williams for sure. Braden Swinson, absolutely. If that kid is anywhere near a Pro Bowl defensive end, that's one of the steals of the decade for the Patriots in their draft so far. Halfway through the decade, it would definitely be. But let me know what you guys think. Who are you most excited about in this Patriots draft class? Who do you think the biggest steal was? Let me know down in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Only about 10% of you watching are actually subscribed to the channel. We're bringing you nothing but Boston sports content 5 days a week, live on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your host, Cam Stuart. Zach Burke keeps us on the air. Check out the other videos on the channel, Talking Patriots, and so much more. And get involved down in that comment section and help us on our march towards 4,000 subscribers.